and basketball analysis with over 70 years combined experience.
The Bob, Ryan, and Jeff Goodman podcast is brought to you by Prize Picks and the Game Time.
Time for Gary Tanguay, Bob, Ryan, the podcast right here on CLNS Media, brought to you by Prize Picks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of the CLNS Media Network. Pick more, pick less with Prize Picks. Bob, at the time that we record this, it is opening day for the Celtics. Do you feel giddy? Do you feel, have you lost that youthful level of expectation?
I love this team and what they can do, well, first of all, what they have done, and the idea that they could repeat would just become a big issue now in this league. It's enough to get me motivated, and I'm very excited about this season.
But do you still, regardless of the Celtics, like my read on Bob Ryan, who's always loved games, and you've made that very clear, that while in your career you've had to opine about issues, for you it's still all about the game. So. Yes. On opening night of the NBA for the Celtics, are you still a kid?
Yeah, I think I see where you're going. No, I'm still a fan. I was fan first. My whole career is built on being a fan of sports and then having this wonderful opportunity to live in it and write about it and talk about it for a living. I mean, so I'm a fan. I mean, I'm not one of these detached observers at all. No. Now, here's the one thing that's changed in this league. Do I like it as much as I once did? No, I still like it, and I made my grudging accommodation with the hostile takeover of the 3-point shot, which has altered the nature of this game. It has altered the nature of the game.
Totally, it's changed.
I'm not going to say it destroyed it. No, that's hyperbole. That's nonsense. But it's altered the nature of the game. And it's a different game. I still like the game. It's still a game I'm familiar with. But I'm saying I'd like to go back to 1986. In that regard. I think, but it's still the best basketball in the world with these athletes who get better and better athletically. We know that. Not that they have a monopoly on athleticism, but we all know that. And and we here in Boston have a exemplary team in the new world, and there's nothing not to like. So,
well, you mentioned 1986, so we realize we have a list that we need to get to. Bob Ryan wants to talk about the ESPN Top 10 Hoop List, but we have a banner raising tonight, much like as a result of the 86 season.
Yeah.
So you have seen many banners raised. How do you feel when it happens? Is there one that sticks out? Is there any particular memory you have?
Well, not the ceremony itself. I mean, it's the memories you're restoring. Like, for example, here's what I'm sure I'll be thinking about. The last night that I was in that building for a Celtic game, I have been back in the building. We had an ABCD Hoop Dreams there, but anyway, it was the night of one of the most festive occasions in the history of the team, which is with all these championships, this being the 18th. This championship game, now the last two championship clinching games going back to 2008 as well, have been, thorough humiliations of the vanquished foe. The one was really sweet because it was the Lakers, and 131 to 96, 132 to 96, and this one with that fantastic game that they played, and Pritchard's shot is going to be the signature, even though it was only at halftime. But it was the symbolic ending of the the clinching of the season, of the whole thing. So it's going to be fun to rekindle that memory, because the last time I was in that building with all the people, it was a happening. It was so much fun. Everybody was enjoying themselves. So that'll be nice to rekindle that. But as far as the ceremonies themselves, I don't really have any memories of anything specifically.
All right, now let's get to the meat of the conversation here. ESPN has a list out that you would like to comment on, and what is certainly not a surprise is I think Tatum is a top-ranked American on this list.
There's a couple of things on my mind. This is number one. I want to talk about the globalization of the league in general, which this is going to lead right into it. Okay, yeah, ESPN's come up with a top 100, and the top 10 are as follows, going from 10 to 1, okay? Number 10 is Anthony Edwards. Number 9 is Kevin Durant. Number 8, Joel Embiid. Number 7, LeBron. Number 6, Steph. And number 5, Jayson Tatum. Number 4, Mr. Gilgeous-Alexander, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, SGA as we like to call him. Number 3 is Giannis Antetokounmpo. Number 2 is Luka Doncic, and number 1 is Nikola Jokic. What's interesting about this league? 5 of the 10 are international players,
Right.
and including the top 4, and 3 of them are the top 3 are European because number 4 happens to be Mr. Gilgeous-Alexander, a Canadian. It's such a statement on the way the game has evolved, And by the way, the league announced all the schedules and everything today, and put out those schedules. They have a record 125 international players in the NBA right now, in 43 countries and possessions.
Wow.
And that's just I just smile when I think about the big story it was when the very first European who was not developed in an American college, because we had some guys that had, they were born in Europe and they played college in America and they got drafted. Guys like Detlef Schrempf, for example, or as Larry used to call him, Deltif. But anyway, Deltif, he played at University of Washington, and we had guys like that. But this was the first time that there was a European bred only by them to come over here and play. His name was Georgi Gluchkov, and he played for the Suns. He was a Bulgarian. And guess what? He played 1 year, went back home, and there has never been another Bulgarian.
Wow.
Basketball didn't take off in Bulgaria thanks to Georgi Gluchkov. But we know it took off in Serbia and Croatia and Lithuania and Slovenia. And we know that. But okay, we got 125. The list is it's an interesting list. The number one American, the highest rated American, is Jayson Tatum.
It's interesting that Jaylen Brown did not crack the top 10.
No, what top 10? 10's tough. 10's tough. I mean, Jalen Brunson right now, I think can make himself a case too. And for example, but there's plenty of so. But yeah, Jaylen Brown, more motivation for Jaylen Brown, as if he needed any more.
No doubt.
As if he needed any more. So
despite his struggles offensively in the finals, Tatum is getting the respect.
Yeah, he is, because he's being recognized as an all-around skillful player who can help you. Yeah, his shooting was off, but he rebounded great. He become a facilitator, and there it is. So trying to think of whether there are Americans, that weren't on this list right now. Who? I mean, we can go on.
Well, you mentioned Brunson. Look, if I want to complain about Jaylen Brown, and Jalen Brunson has a case to make too. I mean, obviously, you have some guys that are long in the tooth, in LeBron, where in the past they would be number 1 and 2.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well,
now they're in the bottom 5. So next year, they're up top 10.
It's a remarkable tribute to LeBron, who is going to be 40 on the 30th. That he's still a premier player. He is still a premier player.
Did you see they're giving odds on Bronny for Rookie of the Year?
I just saw. I didn't read it. I saw the headline. I'm going. And really, we didn't think he was going to be on the team. If he was going to be in the G League. And the other night, LeBron he had 17 points in the game the other night, because they did lose that game 122-74 to the 132-74 to the Warriors. LeBron didn't play, AD didn't play, blah blah blah. Yeah.
What is the one thing, Bob, as we're on the doorstep of the season here, that you're looking to see? I have one specific thing that I cannot wait to see. What is it for you?
Wow. Well, I don't have such a thing right now. I'm just anxious to hear.
Well, I keep hearing, Bob. I keep hearing that Tatum's shot is looking good.
Yeah. Right. That he's made some technical adjustment and
technical adjustments going on now. Granted, I have not been plugged into the preseason. Okay, which is just whatever. I can't do it. But tonight, at the time we tape this, like tonight, that's what I'm going to be looking for. Can this guy, has he regained his offensive stroke? Because you know it, and I know it, that if this guy maintains his shot, it's over. I mean, it's Over. I mean, some people think it's over now.
He's still the amazing thing about him. The way the world has evolved with these young guys. He's 26.
Oh, I know.
Year 8, coming up, and it's gonna be interesting. On the Celtics, that's one. The continued development of the bench and Hauser and Pritchard and they each have improved. That's going to help.
You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Hey, sign up today. Get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Cook up hot takes with your friends and win real money this football season when you and your crew run your game on Prize Picks. This week on the Prize Picks football board, Justin Jefferson for more than 83.5 receiving yards and Patrick Mahomes for less than 267.5 passing yards. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game.
Missoula last year seemed to be pretty even keel.
Oh, yeah.
But his first year, Missoula was very defensive. And he was very even keel last year, like very calm, very clear. This year, he's getting a little quirky, at the podium. And I wonder if it's on purpose. I wonder if it's to take away attention from the team or less pressure on his guys and focus on him. He seems to have a little bit of that edge back so far in the media, but a little quirky too.
I just think he's unveiling himself, peeling back the layers. We're just learning more and more about who he is and what his whole the whole shtick, his whole thing, if you will. Because we knew nothing in the beginning. We're learning it all piece by piece. We knew nothing. Joe Missoula, okay, he's an assistant coach. He's on the second row. I remembered him at West Virginia, but after that, off my radar screen, and until the morning of the 22nd of September, 2020.
Well, I mean, you mentioned West Virginia. He doesn't. I'm starting to see some similarities to Huggy.
Really?
He does not care what people think. I mean, as well as I do, Huggins did not care what Bob Ryan thought, did not care what Bob, and I don't think this guy does either.
Well, I think he's very secure in his own skin, as they say.
I mean, he should be, because they won a title.
Yeah. Wow, but I just have such an image of Huggy, and actually, what's funny about that is that the couple of interactions I had with him, one in particular at a function. He comes off a lot more gentle than you would have thought. The intimidation factor.
Well, he's a bigger dude, obviously.
He's big guy. It's like Bob Knight. It's bigger. People don't realize how big Bob Knight was, and how big Huggy is. So anyway, that's interesting. I'll have to ponder that. I just think Joe Missoula is we're just learning layer by layer of what he's all about. And so he had that strange quote, about I wonder if there were Christian coaches. That was odd. I didn't. Okay, fine, but that was a weird one. But there's a few things that come out of his mouth you wonder about.
Well, yeah, and last year he was pretty straight, and then this year he's back to not being offensive, but he's just being quirky or odd. I don't know. Maybe he's bored.
Well, an issue,
the media.
He's not oblivious to the noise, so that, as they like to say in the sports world. Okay, the fact that people question the validity of their championship based on the absence of key players on the other teams in the playoffs, and it's undeniable, that they benefited from the absence of people such as Garland and
Jimmy Butler,
Halliburton, Butler, etc., and Mitchell. Mitchell. I mean, particularly not Garland,
right.
Mitchell. So yeah, Now my counter argument to that, of course, is that they went 37 days without Kristaps Porzingis, and survived, and so they had to deal with that, and they dealt with it very nicely. But I think he's got motivation. He knows damn right well that there were people out there that are going, yeah, but there was a little asterisk on that title. Although the fact of the matter is, they were so dominant, and they had set a record for point differential. They had set a record for most. I love this one that ESPN came up with: the most 20-point leads at any point in the game in the season in the history of the league. Well, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Tells you that speaks to a dominance, right?
Of course it does.
And it was 16-3 in the postseason.
Yeah.
And although, by the way, in your previous reference to the preseason this year, they had three different times they led by 30, at least, and
sending Pritchard to the podium after a game. So it's not like they're loading up with the starters. I mean,
I think he's become unavoidable, if you will. He's turned out to be everything I hoped he would be, and they're very lucky to have him. I think, and that he's. I don't know if he's totally content. I'm sure he'd like a big payday someday, but But anyway, we still have him. It's better every year.
Yeah, I mean, don't worry, that's coming, because what happens is he's going to get a big payday, go somewhere, and probably not win. So it all evens out in the wash. Guys that go on to win big, and if they're not they get paid at some point.
Yeah, you're right.
No, but I think really the untold story of the Celtics, and it's because of his personality, and he would much prefer to be in the background and have Joe go out and say quirky things, is Brad Stevens. And to me, I think he's the forgotten man in all of this, where you take a look, if Tatum gets the jump shot back, and he has assembled a team that not only fits well together on the floor, but they fit well together emotionally and mentally. And it's tough enough in the NBA to do that for one season.
Yeah.
But now he's got them ready to go again for the second season with no drama. They're focused. If they're healthy, they win. And Brad Stevens, to me, is the unspoken hero in all of this.
Well, I just keep saying we're lucky to have him around, and the transition was effortless, was beautiful for him, Danny, and him. I agree with you, and he is self-effacing. He's not a publicity seeker. He's living. He wants very much to live as normal a life as he can.
No question.
And he's so far, I think he has succeeded in doing it. And if he's happy doing this, that's fine. I still, from the day when he did leave the coaching ranks, I couldn't believe how young, that he would do it. That he, at his age, that he won't coach again. And it's, who knows? I mean, he'll wake up one morning and decide,
I think a lot has to do with the family. Maybe when the kids are out of the house, but after you,
now the oldest son is now a freshman in college,
right?
And so we're moving along. Yeah, we'll see. Brady, I love this story about Brady.
What's
Brady,
that?
For people who don't know, Brady Stevens was born in Indianapolis, and Brad said he's caused quite a stir in the incubator when they saw the name Brady. As a person in Indianapolis at the time. It did not go unnoticed in the hospital that they had this kid named Brady in the incubator.
I mean, that's pretty interesting. I had not heard that one.
Yeah. He told me that with a big chuckle.
It's interesting. Would somebody, after having a success as a GM, you don't have to travel, you don't have the headache, do you want to go back into the coaching? Because coaching is such a grind. I'll be surprised if he does.
No, maybe you're right. When he did say, he told me that lifestyle was the preponderant reason.
Right, but now with the kids out of the house, do you go back into coaching? If you're a successful GM, that can really.
Here's the other thing, though. If of the people, the one thought was that the one I keep kidding how they say they're lighting candles all over the state of Indiana, hoping that someday Brad would come and rescue the Hoosiers. Except college basketball is not the same world that he left.
It's not. No. Right.
We just had Exhibit A this week, which a good topic for us. If Jeff were here, we could expound on it. Jeff Goodman, but the resignation of Tony Bennett at Virginia sent shockwaves on top of Jay Wright. That damn right well, and
sure.
He bailed out for that reason.
I'm out.
2 years ago, I don't need this crap. That's not the world I want to live in, and I'm not dealing with this. And Tony Bennett didn't want to deal with this nonsense either. And So I can't see Brad injecting himself back into college sports anytime soon. Given all the upheaval that it's in.
There's nothing like seeing a game live. I mean, watching it on TV is great. We have all the technology, we have our phones, we have access to everything. But being there in person, it's definitely the way to go. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time.
Have you kept an eye or had any thoughts regarding the sale of the Celtics? Because I did have this discussion with someone this morning that if somebody comes in and wants to buy the Grousbeck share and they spend obviously billions, will they want to buy the whole thing? Will the partners get in the way? Will Vegas, if someone wants to come in and buy the Celtics, would they rather just take and have an expansion team in Vegas and start from the ground up? And teams in Vegas do well whether they're playing or not. I've been kind of watching that and following that because I find that whole thing fascinating, how that's going to shake out.
Well, I do too, and of course, one of the things that is an issue is the fact that they don't own their own arena, and it's just a big deal, and to a lot of prospective buyers that would be a big deal, and one of the names that was thrown around this week was a Bezos sibling,
right?
I think it was Mark. I'm not sure.
Yeah, Mark. Well, they have the fund. They have a fund. So it's Bezos money, wherever it's coming from.
It's a great unknown, and I mean, it's not going to have any bearing on this year, obviously. So there's no need for any Celtic fan to fret about some disruption of the process and that the way things are going so nicely this year. Yeah, but once that sale is done, it's an unknown. You don't know exactly how it's going to go, and whoever comes in with his or her eyes open, they're going to be incurring a whopping payroll and the Section 8 thing and all the ramifications of that. And it's going to be.
They will build an arena. There's no doubt. Whoever buys this team is, to me, they're going to build the arena.
Well, that would be. Wouldn't that be something? That we're just so used to the Boston Garden since 1928.
Right.
And this is the second incarnation of it, of course. But that would be. I just can't even fathom that. And of course, the big problem then, of course, is the battle over events and shows, and this one of the things that gets talked about with the Bob Kraft and the desire to build the stadium and it has a soccer stadium in Everett and all that.
Right.
And yet another arena competing for the existing.
It's going to be interesting, but I'll tell you though, Bob, I think there's plenty of room. I've just noticed it with my kids because coming out of COVID, people want live events. Live events more than ever. They're selling out all over the world. They're selling out all over the country. I think there's enough room for everybody. I really do.
Well,
it's live event production is.
Well, I got to say,
anytime soon.
You make a good point about enough events for everybody because I'm always amused myself when I reading about these concerts that sold out the Boston Garden, and I have no idea who these artists are.
Oh yeah, me neither. Forget about
no
it.
Idea who
I don't either. The comedy as well. I mean, you have stand-up comics selling out the Boston Garden. You have other performances, other live acts doing it as well. So I think there's plenty of room there.
But it's going to be something to monitor and the Celtics thing, but it isn't going to have any tangible effect on the performance of the 20.
Oh yeah, no. The next year, I think pretty much next year will be fine. Maybe even the year after that. But I think it's going to get really interesting because there's even one. I forgot the gentleman's name. There's another who's a limited partner who's got a ton of money. The thing that always amazes me, Bob, this young man from Rumford, Maine here you're talking with, when these people come out of the woodwork that have all this money, and I go, where do they come from?
And they no.
Where, sure. Like names you don't hear of, like Bezos, obviously, you know who Bezos is. Or you'll hear about this other guy that's worth $20 billion. I'm like, Where I can't. Where does it come from? My God. Anyways,
well, as a little subplot to that, a little corollary to that, it's a question I pose almost every time I drive up the Southeast Expressway, and I see the boats, and I say, "Who owns all these boats?"
I know.
In this climate, how much use do you get out of a boat? I mean, I'm serious. But I live in a boat. I live in a nautical town. Okay, we got the harbor full of boats, and I'm going, who owns these boats?
Right.
So that kind of ties in with what you're saying about where do these billionaires get their money to? Who owns all?
Where's it all coming from? Like this guy. God. Well, like one of my friends who owned a boat said, the best day was the two best days of being a boat owner is when you buy it and when you sell it. Anyways.
Well, yeah, I know. Well, before we want to touch on the
WNBA.
Yeah, and a couple of things. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, no, okay. Well, let me just WNBA, and then we can wrap up with it. You got a couple of thoughts. I find it fascinating that for the first time ever, we've heard about a potential labor issue with the WNBA. That their deal goes to 27, but they can opt out by the end of this month, so they only play one more season. So the deal would end in 2025. You know as well as I do, they're opting out.
They just did. It's done.
Oh, it is a done deal. I didn't know it was a done deal. Oh, I thought they hadn't officially done it. Okay.
A done deal.
So it's a done deal. So they opt out. How's this going to go?
We're going to find out. I mean, this is a league in which, as recently as the 23-24 season, an issue was that you weren't allowed to go charter, and at the Liberty, I believe it was the Liberty, owned by Joe Tsai, were fined because they broke the rule of flying charter.
Right.
This is just so backward, if you will. But anyway, yeah, this is a league that recently as 2 years ago, they didn't do charter. It was and now, of course, the spotlight has been thrust on them, and they had a tremendous season and had a tremendous postseason, and their profile was obviously soared, and I had to say it most largely because of one person. Caitlin Clark has
he definitely got the ball rolling, but the numbers continue through the finals.
The Caitlin effect, and one of the great benefits of it was that people were then alerted to the fact that there's some other pretty damn good players in that league too, and have been for a number of years. So anyway, no, it's ongoing. It's a very interesting story that they're flexing their muscles, as it were, and demanding their place at this table.
But there's a lot of issues here. Like I was just reading up on some of the salaries. When you take a look, $130,000 to me is still a lot of money in this day and age. But like, that's what some of these players are making. And when you compare it to what other leagues are making,
oh God, yeah,
and you can't compare it to the NBA because the popularity wasn't there at the time. But even to tennis, like female tennis players are multimillionaires. So now I think that what they're seeing is, the television ratings have to be there, and they have to get the network TV money. They're going to have to get a decent TV deal, and then the numbers will trickle down. That's what's going to have to happen. But the health benefits, maternity leave, which they just got in 2020, things of that nature. So it's not just going to be about the money. It's going to be a lot.
They need to get to a point as quickly as possible where it's financially solvent enough that nobody has to go to play in Europe just to make a living.
Well, I'll tell you one thing is they don't want to work stoppage.
No.
They don't want to work stoppage because I think a work stoppage for any league, probably with the exception of the NFL, they could work like for baseball or basketball. I think a work stoppage for any league right now would be a bad idea because there are too many options. There are too many entertainment options. So I hope that doesn't happen. So I think it's going to be interesting. And good for them. The players certainly deserve it. There's no doubt about it, but it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
Now, the one final thought on them and the league is I watched, a good portion of the playoffs, and I watched the championship game, unfortunately, that was not a good game. And you can talk about good defense, But the fact is that it was not a good demonstration of the product. I wish there had been a better, product. And the other thing is that I always feel this way about any sport, basketball in particular. I hate what I call loose ends. I want the ending to be clean. It was anything but clean. It was a very, very much of a loose end with a controversial call that was bad. And it was pretty obvious that was not a foul that put Breanna Stewart to the line and get a chance to send him into overtime. But then it reopened discussion about just in general terms, they've got to improve the quality of officiating. That everybody seems to be in agreement with that. There's no dispute about that. So that's one thing they got to do. And but I hate the fact that this big game went down to didn't go down, but now when these things happen, you always have to remember if you hadn't put yourself in a position, to be hurt by that, because you should have played better to start with. Both teams, because and then the horrendous evening by the two stars, shooting wise, Stewart and Ionescu. Ionescu won 5 for 34. I have to point out something to people though. This is in fairness to those two stars. In the 1957 Game 7, Boston Celtics 125, St. Louis Hawks 123, double overtime. The all-star backcourt, and they were together. They were the all-star backcourt for at least 4 or 5 years in the 50s. The first team, Bob Cousy and Bill Sharman, they shot in that game 5 for 40.
Yeah,
collective, and they were bailed out by two rookies, some guy named Russell and some guy named Heinsohn.
Right.
And Heinsohn, of course, Tommy had 37 points and 23 rebounds in that game 7. Cousy and Sharman shot 5 for 40, and so it was even worse than Ionescu and Stewart. People should be aware of that before they come down too hard on Ionescu and Stewart. But guess what? They're champs now, and there you go.
Anything else, Bob? Before we
they got bailed out. They got bailed out by a rookie too. Not a rookie, but a sub.
Right.
Yeah. No, just a happy New Year to everybody in the NBA. It's as we inaugurate the season. The league began modestly in 1946, and here we are. And a lot of teams have big hopes. By the way, I mean,
sure.
And then both
wide open.
A lot of teams have big hopes. Celtics are favored, but they're going to have to earn it.
I think it's wide open for number 2, I should say. I think the Celtics are by far ahead of anybody else, but, number 2 is wide open. Bob, just a final question, because they call you the commissioner for a reason. Are you surprised, or do you ever sit back and are you astounded at how the league has grown in such an international level of popularity based on when you started coming out of Boston College covering this team or this league?
No. Yes, the answer is yes. It's totally global. It's the second biggest thing in the most popular sport in the world after soccer/football, and it's with 125 international players in the league this year on the opening day rosters, and it's improved so much, and it's great. And I mean, like I say, we've gone to a point from where we had the one Bulgarian in 84, 85. Now we got 125 internationals. And it's a tribute to, but I'm telling you right now, people that never got the whole point of the Dream Team. The tipping point that set all this in motion was the Dream Team and the inspiration that they provided for a lot of youngsters all over the map and all over the globe. And that was the turning point. And the Dream Team, they were the true ambassadors of sport for this. And it wasn't our idea. It was the late Boris Stankovic of FIBA who dragged us kicking and screaming into the international world in that level. And they could never, everybody who's benefited from it could never thank that man enough.
Robert, we'll talk to you again in a few days. Brought to you by Prize Picks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of the CLNS Media Network. Pick more, pick less with Prize Picks. Enjoy the opening of the greatest season ever, Bob.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.